the hell kind of nightmare? What is up, my maniacs? I'm the Awesome Maniac, and today I'm starting off my second big franchise reviews with A Nightmare on Elm Street. Released on November 16th, 1984, it saved New Line Cinema from bankruptcy and kickstarted a massive money-making franchise that includes movies, a TV show, a few video game appearances, and a crossover with the Friday the 13th franchise. It stars Robert Englund as the fiendish Freddy Krueger and Heather Langenkamp as the young but strong Nancy Thompson. Without further hoopla, let's get this started by talking about the characters. The cast for this movie is not very big, and the advantage of that is that we get to spend more time learning about and maybe caring about these characters, but then the disadvantage of that is the risk of not caring for them either. Thankfully, it's not an issue because all the characters are very well written. Wes Craven knows his shit and it shows. He even got me cared for characters that I wouldn't normally care about, like Nancy's drunkard mom. At least I understand why she is the way she is. I like how they set Tina up as the main character in the beginning. Craven seems to have liked the approach that Psycho first used because he used it again 12 years later with Scream. And then you got John Saxon, who brings his A game because that's just what John Saxon does. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Freddy's equal in this movie, Nancy Thompson. She's smart, tough, and capable. One of the final girls people talk about when they talk about final girls. Heather Langenkamp believably portrays the girl next door better than most I've seen. So for characters, I'm going to give this a party rating. The story of this may be the most memorable part. I'm talking about memorable lines, scenes, effects, just something you don't easily forget. But before I talk about the actual story, I do want to say something about the music and sound design because it's all phenomenal. Now, I'm not one to buy movie albums, but this one would definitely be an exception. The story itself is one of the most unique I've ever seen. A former child killer coming back as a dream demon to kill again is something else. Now, I could see how this kind of thing could have been mishandled, but as I said before, Wes Craven knows his shit. The movie is finely paced, focusing more on how the characters shape and react to the plot rather than the kills themselves, although those are certainly memorable, but I'll talk about those later. Just a few tidbits that caught my attention while I was watching this. I love the opening where he's making love. It's the perfect intro to this movie. The bathtub scene has so many different ways you can interpret it, but they're all creepy. And finally, I noticed he has his normal voice, like normal Robert Englund voice, in the first half of the movie, but then becomes the monstrous voice that we know from the later movies in the second half. I don't know if that was deliberate, but I will say that I love the practical effects used in this movie, but some of them can look dated and cheesy, like when Freddy was chasing Tina. And the last thing I want to talk about is the ending, because it's so fucking stupid. It's not well done, like, at all. I know this was like Bob Shaye's fault because he wanted to lead into a sequel, but it's just not well done at all. For story though, I'm gonna give this a Godfather rating. What can I say about Mr. Frederick Charles Krueger that hasn't been said? Probably not a lot, but here we go. What a dirty, creepy, sadistic bastard. But Robert Englund plays him so perfectly. The way Freddy plays with his victim shows his malice. It only feels like an evolution of who he was before he died. I think it's the power trip that does it for him, because as a child he didn't have power because of how he grew up, being the bastard son of 100 maniacs. I think he then tries to get that power and feel that power trip whenever he preyed on the children before he died. And after he died, it was even worse because he was invading their dreams, and you're defenseless in your dreams, you don't have power. And also, Freddy's design in this is instantly recognizable. And it's because of how they knocked it out of the park in the first movie that his look really didn't change that much over the rest of the movies. The biggest thing that changed was mainly his face. And that face is disturbing enough that you won't forget it anytime soon. For Killer, I would be anything less of a human if I did not give him a legendary rating. If you've got a small cast like this, then you're bound to not have a lot of kills. So to counter that, you've got to make some very memorable kills. And in this regard, the movie succeeded immensely. Every one of the 4 kills is stuff that I will never forget. Starting with Tina's death, I gotta say the effects that they pulled off to make her look like she was actually floating midair were pretty convincing. You remember the tagline for the Superman movie, "You'll believe a man can fly"? Well, for this one, it's "You'll believe a dead bitch can fly." Rod's death? Well, if you notice, he's wearing Nike shoes, and I wouldn't say it's the best way to advertise your product, hanging off the feet off the ground of a broken neck teen. Nancy's mom's death? A little cheesy with how the skeleton moves, but the way she disappears into the bed is almost a seamless transition. And oh yeah, let's talk about how Johnny Depp was turned into a fucking blood geyser spewing from his own bed. Now, I've heard from the filmmakers how everything wrong technically went for this kill, but it's safe to say that it was worth it because I don't think anyone's going to forget it. For kills, I'm going to give this a Savini rating. Now, here are the kills. I remember on the first episode of Stream Warriors when we talked about A Nightmare on Elm Street, like the franchise, that I expressed the sentiment that this movie just didn't do anything for me. Well, I'm glad to say that on a rewatch that I was sorely mistaken. Everything about this movie, from the well-written characters to the unforgettable story to the even more unforgettable kills and the legendary performance of Robert Englund, makes this movie, in my mind, a masterpiece. So for that, I would be an idiot if I give this anything less than a marathon rating. Hey, did you know that I have merch? Yeah, just look in the description below and donate to my Patreon while you're there. Join me next time where I cover the gayest horror movie ever made. Until then, don't forget to like, share, comment, and if you haven't, subscribe. Bye bye.